Right, welcome to this painting tutorial for Tyranids. I'm going to be painting a monstrous creature in this video. I'm going to show you the technique that I use for all of the Tyranids that I have, and extremely easy and straightforward once you know how. So follow along, and then you can paint your Tyranids to match this scheme, or you can mix the colours around, just apply the same technique that I show you, and you can change your colours to something else, but highly effective. Follow along and you'll see exactly how it's done. So just colour scheme, I want an aggressive colour, so I went for red, and then just a technique where it's predominantly red and then you're picking out the bone and armoured parts, and it's highly effective. It's got nice contrast against other armours and races. Right, so paints you'll need for this project, there's not very many. So the first one is Codex Grey. This is the old colour. Games Workshop released new colours, so if you want to know which colour is which, just Google search Citadel paint conversion chart, and that graphic will tell you the old names and then the new names for the paints, because I've got a mixture here. So it's the old Codex Grey, and then the new Ceramite White, which is the old Skull White, and then Blood Red, that's the old colour, and then the old Blazing Orange, and then the new colour Flash gets Yellow, and then just two washes, Seraphim Sepia, and then Agrax Earth Shades. That is it, that's all the colours you need for this particular colour scheme. So just on preparation for this project is the base. I've sanded it down so that the glue gets a nice grip, and then it's a flying base. So what I've done is I like to keep this clear. I don't like painting over the top. So I just cut out, I stick it on top here, and then I just draw around the shape, and then that shows me the area that I need to leave when I come to doing the basing. So that comes off, and then I've just scored it with a knife just around, and then I just paint the glue on up to that edge, leaving plenty of room so I can glue it on later on when it's all finished. And then I've just put my sand, my stones and some larger rocks just on that base there. If it's a flyer with a bit of weight to it and you don't want it falling over, then in this void here sometimes you can stick coins with super glue underneath, or pieces of lead, and that gives it a bit more weight to stop it from falling over. I've done that in quite a few of my flyers. That's a good tip to do. So that's the preparation for that. That's dried, and then I've sprayed it with Stealth, and that's by Montana Gold aerosol range, and it's Stealth. Sometimes they change the names. The code is 7070, and it's just like a dark grey. Spray the whole thing. It does the rim for me in the colour that I want, and then it does that shaded colour for the basing as well. It's sort of urban, abandoned city type terrain that I'm doing for my 40k stuff, so that's just a uniform colour that I use. Just a coat of that, and that gets the base ready to go straight on with dry brushing, so you're saving yourself loads of time. And then here's the hive crone. Just constructed the whole figure, stuck everything on. I think I can manage this one without having to paint anything separate. And then the whole thing, again, this is going to save you loads of time. The whole thing's given a prime of red, and that's pure red by Army Painter, and that's gone straight onto the plastic. I haven't done any other colour underneath that. A couple of coats, and that has given it a head start. So it's all the red done, and that has saved me having to paint that on. That will save you loads and loads of time, and you can go straight on with washes and highlights onto that colour. Right, so I'm going to get this base done first. So we've got our dark colour already on there, so just going to go straight on with highlighting. So I use the Codex Grey, and then I'm just using a larger brush here, a wash brush. Scrubbing out the paint onto the base there, just to get rid of the worst of it, because I don't want to fill in the gaps. And then just scrubbing the brush. It's good to use an old brush for this, because it actually highlighting the sand does wear away the brush after a while. So I'm just running over the details there. And you may think, well, why not just go straight on with white? But this grey underneath helps blend it all in. It looks a lot better. So just scrub the whole thing. It's quite quick. All the shading's done for you, so you're straight on with your highlighting colour there. Don't worry about bits of sand if they come off, doesn't matter. You should see that start to pick out the details there. This basing technique is exactly the same. All my figures are done exactly the same way. If you don't want to use grey, if you're fighting out in, say, woodland or countryside or whatever, then change your spray to maybe brown, and then the rim will be done brown, and then the base here will be done brown, and then you can put your grass and other effects over the top. Or same again, sand, if you're fighting out in the desert, then spray it a sand colour. Whatever base colour you want. But just doing that spraying and basing all together saves you lots of time. So it's going on well. Maybe that. You can see it's highlighted that nicely already. Looks good. And just this last bit. Any flicks over the side, just rub them off with a wet finger. Any damage, if a big stone falls off, and you can see through to the base, or there's a patch here, I'm not worried about it, because I can cover that with flock later on. You can use that to actually repair any damage whilst you're painting, it's no problem at all. So whilst there's still a bit of grey, I'm going to leave a bit of grey on this palette. I'm going to take the white, scrub it out, and then it mixes a little bit with the grey, and that keeps it an off-white colour. I don't want pure white on there, it's too stark. And then I'm just doing not as strong a sort of scrub as before, and I'm just highlighting now these stones here, and you can see that's lifting that another shade up. Very fast technique and nice and effective. Right over the top there. I think it looks effective enough, and it's not too time consuming. You get a good effect in a short space of time. So it's running on nice. We're just leaving this area here. We're highlighting right up to it, but we're not going to scrub onto that dark grey there. We're just running around. Not fussed about bits falling off. Doesn't matter if the weaker bits fall off anyway, because you don't want them coming off later on when the figure's finished and using it in a game. So any weak bits that come off, it's good that they're falling off, because they'd only come off later anyway. Just running over what I've done here, just using up the spare paint, and quite happy with that. But you can see that wears away the bristles, so it's good to save your old brushes, and you can use them for tasks like this. That's finished. That highlighting's done, happy with that. Right, so now you want to take the Seraphim Sepia, finished with the grey and the white. Seraphim Sepia, and you can use, you want some control, so I'm going to take a base coat brush here. And you're just using that to sort of shade the base. So here, this cluster of rocks, I'm just going to put it around the base of that, let it absorb in, just patches, and then just in between there. And that just adds another colour in. If you went straight onto flock, it would look a bit stark, a bit plain looking, but just adding this shading just weathers it nicely, and that really makes a difference. So you can see the two halves there, some difference that's made there. Nice and quick, we'll go around this rock, on this one, just random patches here and there. And this cluster cluster of rocks. That's it. Okay, so you can see that now, that's just weathered that base nicely. Just leave that to dry. We've got the flock to put on, then we varnish it, and then once it's varnished, the very last thing that you put on is your stand, and that goes on, and that won't be disturbed by anything, not even the varnish. It will stick it on the very, very last thing. I've just sanded it along the bottom here, cleaned it, and then I'll run my plastic glue along there, let it sit for a while, run plastic glue along here, and then just press that in, hold it in, and then that should be a strong enough join. No problem at all. But that's how to do the flying base for the hive crone, and we'll just leave that to the side to dry, and then we'll flock that right at the very end. Right, the reason why this colour scheme is so fast is, one of the reasons is because there is no base coat stage as such. We've sprayed it red, and for this technique that is all that is required. We're ready to go straight on with washes here. We're going to create a wash effect on top of this miniature and then go straight on to highlights at the end. So this is the hive crone. It's going to take a while. It's Agrax Earth Shade is the colour, and the entire figure is going to receive a coat of that. So you want a nice big brush. I've got a wash brush here. That's what the brush is designed for. And you're just looking to work the wash into the figure. You can cover ground quite quick. You don't want any gaps shown. You do want to make sure that you get it done right. Not too much, you don't want it forming in puddles, not too little, you do want it to shade properly. So we just run that over the whole thing. There's the tentaclids. They'll get a coat, and it picks out all the armour, all the cracks for you, all the shading. Just tones that red down nicely. It does all the hard work for you. I mean, this is obviously a monstrous creature, flying monstrous creature, so a lot of surface area to cover. It's going to take some time. But for the other miniatures, this process is fast, but I think the outcome is pretty effective. Tyranid is one of the races where you can use this technique effectively for this uniform colour scheme. There's a second tentaclid in there, just working in the brush. I do want to make sure I cover all the areas and get everything shaded in, because it will stand out if you don't. Once it's dry and you see somewhere, you can just touch it in with a shade. No problem at all. So that's that really. Using the brush to work it in, mopping up any loose, any spare. And you can see that the shading done on there, and I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to do the rest of the figure here, let that dry, and then we're on to the next stage. Right, so next stage, our base colour is already there, and then we've washed the whole miniature and it's dried, and that's just done all the shading for us. So before we come on to the sort of the chitin armour effect that I'm going to show you later on, I just want to work on the red areas that aren't going to be armoured. I want to bring up the red. See this part here? We want to just enhance that before we go on to painting the armour. And you also want to just go over any areas where the ink's just made marks and it's not gone smooth. You just want to sort of doing like a repair job sort of thing, and then also doing the highlights at the same time. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking the blood red and I'm just running it over the miniature, dry brush, working it in. Nice and quick. Just scrubbing off the paint onto the palette, so I'm not carrying too much. and then just scrubbing it and working it into the miniature. So it's red first. I've just got the pot of blazing orange open as well. I'm going to show you what I do with that. So it's just repairing the red. It's bringing up a nice strong red here, and then the shaded areas are staying as they are. So you're just enhancing the effect that you've created with the wash. I think it's quite important to do this. Just working that red in. I'm starting on a panel, and then as the brush starts to dry out, I can start reaching into the corners. This is coming up quite good. And just here. See, that takes away the strength of the wash in an area where you don't want it. Then just run along there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this wing, and then you'll see how it works, and then I'll do the rest a bit later. Just working up the red, quite happy with that. So now we'll take blazing orange. You may want to wash your brush out, scrub out the red. Just going to scrub out the red on dry tissue here, and then start mixing with a blazing orange, taking off the excess, and just being careful here, and just then giving another highlight. The main areas you want this orange highlight to go on is where there won't be any armour plating. So this arm in particular, make sure the orange gets on that. And hopefully you can see that it's starting to pick out, just enhance the detail and the shading that's already there. And onto the wings a bit, because the wings aren't going to have any more. This is the last of the painting that I'll do on the actual wings. Just lifts them. It does make a difference. Just here. You can see it there. Let's rotate it around. The shading's in there, and then the raised areas are being made lighter. It just adds depth to the figure and helps enhance that effect. Flat red wouldn't look very good, but just this simple technique builds up the strength of the colours. If you want to enhance it, if you want that orange to be stronger, let it dry, go on to another area, and then come back to it and keep building it up as much as you want. I'm going to go back onto this section. I'm just scrubbing it again. I'm using the old wash brush, so I'm sort of working it into the miniature, scrubbing it in. And again, the arm just flicking over the top of that. All the details now picked out, and miniature looking really good. I'm hoping you can see it. See a difference there between this wing and then the highlighting effect on here. And it's just lifted everything out. The details are really nice and strong now, so the shading looks even stronger because you've lifted up the colour. And then I'm just going to do that over the whole miniature, and that leaves all the red areas highlighted and done. Once that's finished, you can then start painting your armour special effect, which we'll go on to next. I'm just going to finish the rest of this miniature here. Right, so there he is. I've highlighted with the red and the orange over the whole creature here. You can see underneath the details all nicely picked out. That's just scrubbing it over with the old brush, and all the areas that are going to stay red are now nicely enhanced there. All the shading's done for you, so it's looking really good. You can see all the detail on the ribcage looking really nice. All the dark recesses coming up good. You see the face there, all the details picked out. So that's now ready for picking out the chitin armour. That's what really brings this thing to life. So I have 3 paints set out here: my white, my yellow, and then the orange, and it's those 3 layers you're going to build up to create that bony effect. We're going to do a layer of orange first, then a layer of yellow, and then a layer of white mixed with some yellow to finish it off, and that will create that effect. But you choose where you want it to go. I put it on the armoured parts, so for Tyranids I don't bother putting it on the arms or the spine parts to the wing here, or any flesh areas. These parts of the wings I'm not going to do, rib cage I'm not going to do. Areas like claws, bits that stick out here, the armoured plating, all of that gets that coat, or that special effect done to it. We're going to show you what I mean. We're going to zoom in and you can watch me do a section of it. Right, so you can see this area here. You've got the arm coming down, and then here's a bony part here, all the plating. We're going to paint that. So the first colour I use is the orange, and then I just paint lines coming down like so. Just strokes with the brush, and then there's no harm in you being able to see the gaps in between. That'll add to the bony sort of effect. But you see that orange going on. It's just building up the layers, and then these spiky bits here, I'm gonna do them. This thing here. See, I just run the brush around, and then it's not solid, I'm not painting it solidly, it's brush strokes across there. So that's that done with the orange. It's actually dry, so I'm going to show you how the yellow works. So then I do all the bony areas in the orange, and once that's dry, done across the whole miniature, I then swap over to yellow, and it's the same again. So where the armour part ends, I want the bone, the effect looking stronger. So I'm brushing from this direction. And you can see the armour start to lift itself away from the rest of the body. Again, pick out those spiky bits. Keep your paint flowing and thin. That's just enhancing that there. Then you can see that's picked out. So that starts to lift itself away from the rest of the miniature there. This sive and tan type thing is part of the wing, and it's lifting itself away from the skin. So actually, I would paint the cutting edge of it. So I'm going to enhance this part here and sort of merge it in with the red. So I'm just going to fade it out like that, and then here as well. You can see the process again. And for the length of the blade, I just run some long brush strokes like so. Top of the blade. That looks good. Now yellow. Not going as far as the orange went, so you're staggering it as best you can. I'm just putting this on the palette, this yellow, and keeping it altering. this edge here. You can see that's picking that out. It's the armoured parts and the sharp parts, the dangerous parts of the miniature picked out. It's the yellow done. And the orange just helps it all fade in. It doesn't make it too stark. Then you take some white, put it on my palette here. I'm taking white and then adding some yellow to it. It just makes an off-white colour, and that is just right for this. You'll see it as it goes on. It's almost white, but I had a touch of yellow to it. So spiky bits, just pick them out. And then you see part of the yellow is still seen, but it's predominantly white. And this is the neat one. This is where you want to get your effect just right. That's looking good. And just picking out the extreme highlight there and just tapering it off. This is the one where you want to be neat. This is the final layer here. See if I can feed that off. That's it. Looks pretty good. So you can see it there. And if you want, if you've got the extreme end of the spike there, then there's no harm in putting pure white on the very tip there, just to lift that one more time. So that's a fourth and final. But that really lifts that when you make it brilliant white. So you can see there the effect doesn't take too long. You run over in one colour, do all the orange, and then do all the yellow, and then finally all the white. It takes a while, but the effect is pretty good. I think it looks quite striking, and you've picked out the main features of the figure there. So I'm going to run over the rest of this miniature here, and then you'll see the final outcome. Right, so I've now gone over the whole of the figure using that special effect. Just building up the layers. You can see the bone that's been picked out, so all of the talons, all the bits there, and then the sort of the armour plating on the tentacles. Just on the tail there as well, you can see I've done the effect as well, and then just on the main carapace on the body. So that's pretty much the whole thing done. Just a few other little details to pick out, but whatever Tyranid you're painting, it's the same technique. You just look out for the parts that are armoured, and then you just apply your orange first and using the brush strokes. And remember to keep your paintbrush to a sharp tip, and you just run them down like this. Orange first, then yellow, and then white mixed with a little bit of yellow, just to give that bone. And then on the extreme areas, just on top here, and on these bits and at the tips here, I've used just pure white. Right, it's just a couple little bits to finish off. nothing major. Just the eyes, I tend to do them yellow. So you can see the eye in the cavity there. I'll just pick it out with some yellow paint. And that is usually enough. Then the other thing is the teeth. And it's worth being neat at this point. You want to make these look really sharp and strong. So just taking a detail brush here, and I just use pure white for the teeth just to make them as stark looking as possible. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And that really enhances the figure. Just re-go over them here. I want them to look as sharp as possible and to stand out as much as possible. I think the teeth are a focal point on a Tyranid monstrous creature. Just doing the front teeth here. And then I'll paint the rest of those. Right, so there he is. I've picked out all the teeth there, and just using stark white, it just makes it a different colour from the other effect that you're doing. And I think that's quite effective. And those teeth look really, really good on the monstrous creatures, because the eye is drawn to the face, and when you get that big set of teeth, that really enhances the figure and makes it look good. So happy with how that's come out. The eye's just in there as well, and then we've done the rest of the details. So really that is that figure finished. So there he is. It's quite hard to fit him all onto the camera here, but there's all the details, the armour picked out, and all that red nicely shaded and highlighted and ready to go. So he'll just get a light coat of Games Workshop Purity Seal. I found that if you spray too much, it goes a very strong matte colour, so I would advise a very light spray of the Purity Seal. And there's no harm giving it one light coat, and then if you want to give it a second coat, do that again later, but avoid giving heavy coats of the varnish. But this guy here, he'll blend in very nicely with the rest of the Tyranids that I've already got, and I look forward to using this one in games. There it is, very straightforward technique, easy to pick up. Right, so just on the base, I've just got an old brush here, and just taking some PVA from my palette, and what you do is wherever there is a damaged area where bits of the stones have fallen off, if there is anywhere, then make sure they get covered, and then just anywhere else, just randomly dabbing on the glue here. There's no set way of doing it, you just want to make it random, and you put on as much or as little as you want depending on your basing colour scheme. So I just put small patches on because it's meant to be city fight, so I just do a small amount just to break up the rocks. It looks quite plain, just grey, but you add a little bit of flock to it, and it just introduces another colour and adds some more interest. There's no harm in putting some grass up on the raised areas. In there, down here, and then just here. Quite happy with that. Maybe a little bit there. And then there's my tub. Just gonna sure the flock covers the whole thing. So that's covered all the glued areas. Just making sure. Bash off the excess and then blow the rest away. And then just with your thumb, I'm just wiping the rim clean, ready for varnishing. So that's that base done. That'll just now be given a coat of varnish. Right, so there's the base done. I've just varnished it and I've let it dry. So now once that's all done, you can affix your flying base stand, and here it is, kept nice and clean. So use the plastic glue, and you can use whatever you want. I've always used the Revel Contactor Professional. That's nice stuff. Works really well. The needle always gets blocked up, so you end up just using the nozzle here, but it's fine for what we're doing. And I just run, because you've got a layer of paint here, I run the glue down the joint here and here. Fair amount. I don't want it bleeding into the basing there, but a fair amount. Then I also put some on the base. I want this to really melt in. I don't want this snapping on me during games. Now this here where the glue's just sitting, I'm going to leave that for a while. Just going to stand it up because I want that to start dissolving the plastic. And then here, take a knife and just disturb the surface here. I'll just scratch it. Just disturb the surface because I want that glue to get past the varnish and the grey and just onto the main basing plastic, because that's where the binding is going to take place. I'll just help the glue a little bit. It's good to let the glue just dissolve a bit, dissolve the plastic first. This will just help it all key together. As I said, don't want this joint to fail in the middle of the game. Frustrating when something snaps and then especially a flyer or something or a skimmer, and you have to just prop the vehicle up. It's not very good. So I can feel that it's gone all tacky now. It's started to dissolve that plastic. That's good. And then here it started to dissolve as well. So our original shape's there. So it's just a case of positioning it on. It's sitting nice and level. All 4 points are in contact with the base. So very happy with that. Position it in place. And that's it. I'll leave that on a shelf somewhere to dry. And that's gone on really well. And the plastic's completely see-through. So it's not really too bad, not too noticeable. So that's it. That's the base done. I'm not sure how I'm going to fix the flyer on this monstrous creature. Probably may end up having to glue it, or I could magnetise the base here where it's going to make contact. I mean, I might just glue it straight on. There's no reason why the two need to be separated. So, because it won't become a wreck if it dies in midair. So we'll fix that on top. But that's the figure done and the base done. It's a larger one, this one, but you can apply it to any of the Tyranids, this technique. And as I mentioned before, you can change the colour scheme around. You could change this to maybe a bone colour and then choose a different carapace. Whatever you want to do, the technique is open for your own unique application. So there it is. That's done. And thanks for watching. Check out the other painting tutorials on my channel. I've got one for Dark Eldar, Eldar, Tau, Imperial Guard, Space Marines, Necrons, so Blood Angels as well. Just check those out, see how it's done, and then look out for battle reports featuring these armies as well. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time.